Wow, what a roller coaster of a story. What do you think about it? And where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We'd love to know. Also, if you enjoy gripping stories like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss tomorrow's special story. It's one you won't want to miss. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. We're reading every single one. The truth was caught on camera, and it changed everything. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with reporters, spectators, and family members, all waiting in tense anticipation. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken words and barely contained curiosity. At the center of it all stood Jordan Carter, a 13-year-old boy, barely more than a child, yet facing accusations that made him seem much older. Dressed in an oversized hoodie, he looked small, almost swallowed by the fabric, his fingers gripping the edge of the defendant's table, as though it were the only thing keeping him upright. His posture was tense, his knuckles pale from how tightly he held on. But his eyes told a different story. They were sharp, steady, and filled with something neither fear nor defiance, but determination. When Jordan finally spoke, his voice didn't tremble. It rang clear through the silent room, cutting through the tension like a blade. "The cops beat me?" A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Whispers spread like wildfire. Reporters' pens scratched hurriedly against notepads, fingers flew across keyboards, and the rustling of fabric as people shifted in their seats became almost deafening in the otherwise hushed space. Judge Robert Callahan, a man who had seen hundreds of cases in his long career, sat up straighter in his chair. He had expected a routine juvenile hearing, a case about a stolen backpack, a simple ruling. But now, as he stared at the small boy standing before him, he knew this was no ordinary case. Across the room, Emily Hayes, the assistant district attorney, shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. She hadn't been prepared for this. Officer Briggs, the man who had arrested Jordan, sat motionless at the prosecution's table, his expression unreadable, his hands clasped together tightly. Jordan's mother sat in the front row, her breath shallow, her hands folded in her lap, as if holding herself together. The weight of every eye in the room bore down on the young boy, but he didn't waver. Judge Callahan leaned forward, his voice even but firm. "Jordan, do you understand the seriousness of what you're saying?" Jordan lifted his head, locking eyes with the judge. "Yes, sir." A long pause stretched between them, thick and heavy with meaning. Then the judge gave a small nod. "Go on." Jordan took a deep breath, his fingers still gripping the edge of the table. The weight of the room, the stares, the whispers, they were all pressing down on him. But he didn't back down. His voice was clear, steady, every word cutting through the silence like a knife. "I was just walking home," he began. "It was cold, maybe 45 degrees. I had my hoodie up. That's when they came. The room was so still, it felt like no one was even breathing. And every eye stayed locked on Jordan, hanging on to his words. They yelled at me to stop. So I stopped. I told them I didn't do anything. I put my hands up." He swallowed hard. "But they tackled me anyway." A murmur rippled through the spectators. Jordan clenched his jaw, his hands balling into fists before he forced them to relax. "I hit the ground hard. My chest smacked against the sidewalk, and before I could even move, one of them put his knee on my back." His voice wavered for the first time, but he pushed through. I couldn't breathe. I kept saying I couldn't breathe." Judge Callahan's expression hardened, but he remained silent, letting Jordan continue. "They didn't listen. One of them kept pressing down while the other one started hitting me." Gasps. A woman in the gallery covered her mouth. Jordan's mother closed her eyes for a second, as if she couldn't bear to hear it. "First, he punched me in the ribs, then in the side. Then he kicked me." Jordan let out a shaky breath, his fingers tightening on the table. "I don't even know how many times. I just know it hurt." The tension in the courtroom was unbearable. Some of the reporters had stopped writing. Some spectators looked furious, others devastated. Jordan exhaled sharply, then rolled up the sleeves of his hoodie. The reaction was instant. Gasps filled the air as people saw the bruises, deep purples and sickly yellows, some old, some fresh, but all unmistakable. His arms were covered in them. His mother let out a broken sound, her shoulders shaking as silent tears streamed down her face. Judge Callahan's jaw tightened. He turned toward the prosecution. Miss Hayes, is there body cam footage of this arrest? The prosecutor hesitated. Your Honor, the police department reported the footage was corrupted. Jordan let out a short, bitter laugh. Judge Callahan's gaze remained fixed on the prosecutor, his expression unreadable. The courtroom was dead silent, waiting for her response. Miss Hayes cleared her throat, shifting uncomfortably in her seat. As I said, Your Honor, the footage was reported as corrupted. Jordan shook his head, his voice cutting through the tension. No, it wasn't. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. People exchanged glances, whispering, speculating. Jordan wasn't backing down, and the weight of his words was sinking into everyone who listened. Judge Callahan leaned forward, his voice sharper now. Officer Briggs, do you have anything to say about this? All eyes turned to the officer, sitting stiffly at the prosecution's table. Briggs didn't move. His jaw was tight, his fingers interlocked, his knuckles white. Finally, after a long pause, he spoke. The suspect resisted arrest. We used necessary force. The room erupted in whispers. Some in shock, some in anger. Jordan let out a short, bitter laugh. I'm 13. How much force do you need for someone my size? A sharp gasp came from the gallery. The tension in the room had shifted now, not just curiosity, not just speculation. People were angry. Judge Callahan's fingers drummed against his desk. He exhaled slowly, as if choosing his next words carefully. But before he could speak, the courtroom doors swung open. Everyone turned. A woman stepped in, tall, confident, dressed in a sharp navy blue suit. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she walked with purpose. But it wasn't her presence that silenced the room. It was the gleaming badge pinned to her lapel. Department of Justice. Miss Hayes stiffened. Officer Briggs tensed. The whispers started again, louder now. The woman approached the bench, pulling a flash drive from her pocket. Your Honor, I have evidence to submit. Every reporter in the room scrambled to write. Spectators leaned forward. Jordan's mother clutched her hands together, her lips parted in shock. The bailiff took the flash drive, walking it over to the judge. Callahan nodded once, signaling for it to be loaded into the system. The courtroom screen flickered to life. And then, there it was. The corrupted footage. Jordan, in a dimly lit alleyway, his hands raised, his voice clear. I didn't take anything. Then, Briggs shoved him. Jordan hit the ground hard, the knee pressed into his back, the fists, the boots, his muffled cries, his desperate gasps for air. The truth playing out for everyone to see. The footage played in absolute silence. The grainy body cam recording flickered on the screen, but the image was clear enough. There was Jordan, standing alone in the alleyway, his hands raised in surrender. His voice was steady, nervous, but clear. I didn't take anything. And then Briggs lunged. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as the video showed Briggs shoving Jordan hard. The boy hit the pavement, his small frame crumpling on impact. The sound of his body slamming into the concrete echoed through the speakers, a sickening thud that made people wince. Jordan didn't fight back. He didn't even have the chance. The footage showed it all, the knee pressing into his back, his muffled cries, his desperate gasps for air. His small body jerked each time they punched and kicked him, his arms pinned beneath him as he tried to breathe. I can't breathe, his voice pleaded from the speakers. Please stop. But they didn't. One of the officers cursed at him, treating him like he was nothing more than a threat. The courtroom was frozen. The only sound in the room was Jordan's mother sobbing softly into her hands. When the footage ended, no one spoke. Judge Callahan's face was stone cold, his fingers steepled together as he exhaled slowly. He glanced toward Miss Hayes, who looked as if she wanted to disappear into her chair. Even she couldn't defend what they had just seen. The DOJ agent crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. Your Honor, the police department claimed this footage was corrupted, yet, as you can see, it is perfectly intact. The weight of her words settled over the room. This wasn't just about Jordan anymore. It was about something bigger. Judge Callahan's gaze shifted to Officer Briggs, who sat stiff as a statue. Officer Briggs, the judge said, his voice even but sharp. Do you have anything to say? Briggs swallowed, but his lips stayed shut. The silence stretched, heavy and damning. And then the DOJ agent spoke again. Your Honor, I believe we have reason to move forward with immediate action. Briggs stiffened. Spectators murmured, reporters clutched their pens, waiting for the next bombshell to drop. And it did. Effective immediately, the agent said, her voice ringing with finality. Officer Briggs is being placed under federal investigation for excessive force, assault, and obstruction of justice. The courtroom erupted. The courtroom exploded. Reporters scrambled to take notes, cameras flashed, and voices clashed in a chaotic mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. Some spectators shouted in outrage, others in relief. The weight of what had just unfolded, the cold, undeniable truth, was crashing down on everyone in that room. Officer Briggs' face drained of color. His hands, which had been tightly clasped together, slowly uncurled, as if the reality of the situation was finally sinking in. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but it was useless. There was no argument to be made, no defense strong enough to erase what they had just witnessed. Judge Callahan's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Order. This courtroom will remain in order. The gavel slammed against the desk, once, twice, until the crowd finally settled. The judge turned his sharp gaze back to the DOJ agent. Proceed. She took a step forward, her presence commanding the room. Given the evidence presented, Officer Briggs is now under formal arrest for assault and obstruction of justice. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Two federal marshals appeared from the back of the courtroom, moving swiftly toward Briggs. The air was thick with tension, every movement amplified by the sheer gravity of the moment. Briggs' jaw clenched so tightly it looked painful. He shot a glare at Jordan, his face twisted in something between anger and disbelief. But Jordan didn't flinch. He held Briggs' stare with calm, unwavering eyes. For the first time, it was Briggs who looked afraid. His lawyer tried to object. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Judge Callahan didn't even blink. Sit down, counselor. The marshals grabbed Briggs by the arms, pulling him up from his chair. The metallic snap of the handcuffs sent another wave of whispers through the crowd. Reporters frantically typed on their laptops, phones recorded every second. As Briggs was led away, his mask of indifference finally cracked. His face burned with humiliation, his teeth clenched so hard his temple pulsed. But he didn't fight. He couldn't. He had no way out. The heavy doors slammed shut behind him. Judge Callahan turned his attention back to the young boy standing at the defendant's table. His face softened just a little. Jordan, you were brave today. Jordan didn't say anything at first. His small hands, still gripping the wooden table, finally let go. He let out a slow breath. Then he nodded. He had done what so many before him couldn't. He refused to be silenced. This story was intense, heartbreaking, powerful, and unforgettable. But now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Jordan's courage? Do you believe justice was truly served? Comment below and tell us. If you were in that courtroom, watching it all unfold, how would you have felt? Shocked? Angry? Relieved? Let's open up a discussion, because stories like this aren't just meant to be heard. They're meant to be talked about. And here's something else. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. It's amazing to see how stories like this connect people from all over the world. If you found this story compelling, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Tomorrow, we're dropping another story, one that's just as gripping, maybe even more. You won't want to miss it. So what do you think? Let's talk in the comments below. We're reading every single one.